Yeah, I think for me, the pandemic was just such a mix of experiences. It was probably like some of the most fun times that I've had in the last few years, being able to connect with people overseas that I used to live and work with. But it was also just a really strange time, and things that had become normal, like healthcare, suddenly became really stressful, or shopping and things like that. So it was a real mix for me of finding new things and enjoying myself, but also things that should just be normal being incredibly stressful. In the middle of a pandemic, I had major lung surgery, which I would never ever have expected, and that all went really well. But the day-to-day kind of stuff, things like with your GP or regular appointments, were just, I think, the most frustrating thing. Things like you'd have a phone appointment and that consultant would change some medication or prescribe something for you. My record was it actually took 11 months for one of my drugs to go from being prescribed that drug by someone I saw in person actually 2 weeks before the first lockdown began. I saw a consultant in London, and it took until the end of January the following year for me to actually have that drug in my hand. But we switched to online, and suddenly like phone calls, and suddenly appointment times went out of the window. And it's just become really difficult to kind of manage that. Like, I had one doctor phoned me, and it was actually a week before my appointment, and I was standing in line to go and pick up the cat, my parents' cat, from the vet. So it just really tickled me that I'm there on the street with all these people listening in, cold day in North Wales, because I can't see my doctor in person while I go and pick up a cat who has just seen his doctor, kind of thing. And I like that irony, but at the same time, I was just like, this should not be happening, that I shouldn't have been taking that phone call with my doctor a week before it was booked anyway. I generally handle stress quite well, so I think it was quite unusual for me to feel so stressed about my healthcare as well, especially because I do have to give credit. I have excellent doctors and good relationship and everything, so it was really strange for me to find myself like so upset some of the time. But yeah, I would just come off the phone, or I'd be on the phone for like 2 hours on hold or something, and still not get through, or get through and not be able to speak to the person I needed. And it just got to a point where it was just like building up and getting to the point where I didn't want to phone anyone or didn't say anything. And I'm now at the stage where I'm wondering, how do we move forward? Because it can't stay like that forever. I'm wondering what the long-term effects are of having neglected those things, which again, for short term, you're making space for, pandemic and the pressure and COVID and stuff like that. But if we are now going to have to live with this forever, we can't neglect everything else. So for me, at this point, I'm wondering now, what do I do going forward about those things where I got to that point where I didn't want to fight, and I didn't want to have to try and, fight my way through the queue to be able to see someone or whatever. I have a very strong personal faith, and that plays out in basically every part of my life. But it does mean that when things happen, I do look to what's my part in this, and I try and look for where there's hope and where there's positive things. And I think it shaped my character as well, to try and intentionally always see the other side of the story. So I may have been like upset several times about appointments or something, but at that time, just trying to focus on what I can be thankful for instead. And I've been very fortunate to have good teammates around me, great colleagues, and like family who are very supportive. Like, it wasn't difficult for me in terms of getting food and things like that during the early stages of lockdown, because I had so many people around who were willing to, when they were at the supermarket, get something and drop it at the back door and things like that. I think another thing that was really helpful for me that I never had to deal with is our team leader, the charity I work for, is just so understanding of my physical needs. So I never had to fight to shield, basically. They've just been really great. Things like masks and stuff like that. So they made it possible for me to start to return to the group as soon as possible as well, and to incorporate me in things. That was a big help as well. So things like they would do a staff meeting themselves spaced out around the garden, but underneath my bedroom windows, I could still join in. And once they were able to do things in person, they looked for ways of including me. And I think that was a big help too, with being able to kind of like phase back into life and still feeling connected and part of things. I think that focusing on gratitude and all the things that I have been able to access, and thinking about the fact that on the other side of it are people who really are just trying to do their best in a situation they never imagined they'd have to work through, has really helped me to stay positive throughout the pandemic.